I like to take a little bit of a reflective, like maybe let's talk a little bit about my history. So I'm an informatician. I'm also a software developer too, and a clinician, and a bunch of other hats. But in my career, I've developed a couple domain specific languages. And if you're not familiar with domain specific languages or DSLs, they're basically high level ways to work with what technology you have behind the scenes. So this may be a proprietary schema, this may be a proprietary tech stack, but it is allowing a person to kind of like a high level. If you're not familiar with HL7, they're a huge standards organization, but they have their own DSL and CQL. So they're pervasively used. But what happens is over time is that the language of the medicine evolves, but nobody persists the DSL behind the scenes. And so the DSL kind of falls short. Where I look at generative AI, large language models, all of this is it kind of takes out that ambiguity or try to develop something novel and then literally leverage the insights or leverage the data directly. And it's really what Inez was talking about is the amount of time and effort it takes to kind of do some really easy high level analysis, which we perceive as clinicians as high level analysis. It takes an analyst weeks to just come up with a result.
Month.
And I've seen it. All three of us come from a domain which requires a lot of analysts, a lot of implementations, a lot of data scientists, and we've seen this happen over and over again. So where I see this type of technology is really in the data enablement to support many use cases. It's getting back onto my philosophical soapbox. It's a new way to really engage with data or engage with a certain context and literally stop trying to figure out how to force feed maybe the development of a DSL or even a novel UI. It really allows us to use our natural language to interact with it. And that's where I see this technology taking us is instead of having to sit there and come up with a brand new user interface or come up with a new way to define something, this allows us to use natural language to interact with something and really allow the user to express what they truly need. And that's where I see this taking us in healthcare. So you bring it back to the clinician, let them operate like clinicians, avoid the burnout, let them do every single activity to make sure that that patient is happy, engaged, and most importantly, compliant with the treatment paradigms. Make sure that they are, taking their medications. That's a hard thing to do with patients, but with this type of technology, we can start understanding their body language, maybe give us information back to tell us, hey, maybe you need to change your narrative just a little bit to make sure that this patient gets engaged. And so it allows us to be very native with our language and operate as seamlessly while everything else behind the scene is being done for us. So I'll get off my soapbox. I'll pause there.
We brought you here for your soapbox, so I appreciate it. Xiaoyun, can we go to you next?
Thank you. Yes, totally. First, it's so lovely. I share the excitement and all you have here. Let me tell you, as an NLP scientist, for the past year, every day I spend 2 hours at least reading all the literature, scientific discoveries, and NLP, all the progress in the scientific NLP large language domain. So it's never in my career. I've been in this career for almost 20 years like this. Because as I said earlier, every day there are new papers, new models, new applications built. It is an extremely exciting time being in the field of AI. So that is the excitement I really have in the past year. So in terms of the future, it's very hard to predict the future, honestly. So on my end, I think I can foresee that in the clinical care workflow, I think it's probably a little bit slower because, it is related to every day how we treat our patient. Every second, we want to make sure it has a proven, safe to be efficient and also secure. So I think that end, it's probably progress a little bit slower. However, I think on the analytics end of the clinical data, there was a lot of excitement really happened there, as I touched earlier on how we really integrated all the data and the knowledge to really enhance insight generation And as you also touch on those. So in my end, I really see, three things are important. One is really the data. The other is our current understanding, and then technology put all those things together and then generate insight. So I think all the data behind all the systems we collected is really will be the center of the excitement for the next couple of years. Thinking about now you have 800 million data collected, you can accumulate a lot of research evidence insight to really understand a lot of diseases, how the genetic causes of this disease, how the SDOH or environmental factors affect those disease progress, how the symptom signs really triggers the screening of the disease, how the disease really progressed, and what really are the risk factors on those disease progression, and then for each treatment, how well they really performed. All those are now becoming available and can be analyzed to understand the whole patient journey and the disease burden of it. I think, on the healthcare end, so the excitement really coming from all those data with this technology. Now thinking about taking all those data and knowledge into the life science space, how that can really drive the new discovery and the new compound. In the past, let's say it started with 10,000 compounds at the, after 3 years, and then you find like 5 compounds that may be effective. Now with AI, you can really significantly shorten that time to effectively find 5 within a year. For example, I actually see research actually shows that already. So on the drug discovery, that's what it is. And also the clinical trial now, which is the most costly and time-consuming step. How we use technology, really help designing and also find those patients who treating what patients at where. So all those information can be put together at one platform, analyzed, and at the end, it shorten extremely the drug approval process to FDA and then to the post-marketing surveillance. And so once the data get into the practice, then we follow the drug. Because of clinical trial only like 1 year, 2 years, a lot of long-term effects were not really seen. So post-marketing surveillance, we can really do a lot of research using the data to analyze adverse events possibly appeared after 5 years maybe, or some of those other situations. There are a lot of excitement in the life science also. Overall, I think what the NLP scientists really want to see how we can make AI responsible, trustable, and also realistically deployed in the real world setting. So that's what I see in the next year or 5 years. I can pause here.
Thank you, Xiaoyun.
I love it.
Inez, take it away. I know that's a perfect transition for you.
I know. I love this conversation, and this is probably the most fun I've had in a opportunity like this in a long time, because we get to actually pontificate, right, and think about how this could be really useful to everyone. But I'm going to end with grounding us maybe in what, and if I were part of the audience, I would maybe want to hear what is the no regrets work that I could be spending my time doing in using this that is going to contribute to the future that we describe, and also probably make it even better, because we will have learned in the process what it's all about, and what to look out for, and how to participate even in it. I think to myself, if where we can head, and if you were to spend your time applying generative AI to create, just like Cheyenne and Amal said, a clean, comprehensive, trusted data set where you can apply unlimited querying so that you can, really analyze vast amounts of different types of data, EMR, claims, supplemental, self-reported, financial, banking, consumer data all together, where you can really generate the insights in a comprehensive way and make it very personalized to the patient in its output for an improved health outcome. That is no regrets work. It really is. And that's on the data improvement side, because generative AI sits on top of the data that it is. So if you don't have good data in, you're not going to get a good inside out. And I think a lot of the NLP work that's going on really helps to build and achieve that, right? And then I think, you know, the clinical side, for anybody who has a passion and an interest in being a part of this, spend your time identifying the very practical use cases where AI could enhance or improve or generate a better or faster response to or output of. I had the pleasure of writing a population health analytics textbook with a co-author of mine, Dr. Martha Sylvia, where 2/3 of that textbook is dedicated to creating, normalizing data. And I'd like to see, in my 5 years, I'd like to see, well, first of all, I'd like to see a second version of that textbook for personal reasons. But I'd like to see in that second version, I'd like to see that go down to, hey, just use the technology that already exists, buy the technology that makes sense for you and your organization, and then dedicate the entirety of the rest of the textbook to developing the use cases that drive impact and that really matter in direct patient care, direct patient impact, and improving the health of the population.